All right, my friend. I think we're live.
So, where are we live?
I don't know. We're live somewhere. Or we will be live somewhere.
Are we in someone's ears?
Maybe,
Live
maybe.
in someone's ears. So,
All right.
so kind of going back, like the big question is, how do you feel like structuring this?
Well, let's see
Or how do you
here.
think we should structure it?
So our life has been revolving around trying to push out this service slash program. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure, but really a process that we're trying to develop, right? So
Yep.
I know you are a Brave fan. You love the Brave, right? So, yeah, I mean, it really comes down to enjoying the fruits of our labors on these two things, LabXD, and building around this process of this 30 rapid prototyping model that we're doing. I myself, a
Okay.
UX engineer, I do rapid prototyping all the time. So this is really a combined effort between me and you. You yourself are a technical architect, and let's see if we can produce something in 30 days. And really, this is what we produce in 30 days. Bam! A fully functional survey application. Single click sign on. We're using Google as our authenticator. Here's a dashboard. And really, it's just all the fun things like survey for the masses. When you build a survey app in 30 days? Yes. Oh no.
Yeah.
Right? That's a great question.
I mean,
Here it is.
it was a it was an interesting experience for us to kind of put a like time box ourselves and see what we can actually build within that time. Because like oftentimes a lot of the products work on in a lot of different places. There's a lot of deadline, but often the vision is also not limited. There's always a lot of desire to build more and more and more. And so here, what we were trying to figure out, it's like, what can we really build in 30 days? And how can we build something that's viable and valuable?
I think we did that. I think
So
we
that's,
definitely accomplished a lot of that.
yeah, that's kind of like the challenge. And I think part of like the exercise here is that, it's like kind of doing anything in life. You're just going to do more iterations of it until you kind of nail down your process, right? Like, and this is where kind of building off your experience of rapid prototyping UI. How do we rapid prototype an entire user experience, like front to back, and like rapid prototype a product, right? Like that's kind of what we are trying to achieve here. And what's the shortest amount of time, but that's still enough time to achieve that goal.
So I guess when we started this whole thing, we started with the LabXD. A little caveat, when we started LabXD, we did LabXD Incorporated because your boys truly, Walee, jumped on Stripe and said, hey, a free $600 voucher to like incorporate yourself?
Let's do it.
So let me just share my screen so we can be on the same page here, my friend. Oh man, we got to pay for this eventually. Hopefully it makes it worth it, right?
Yeah.
So here's Stripe. And what we did was we learned about Atlas And really, Atlas is the part where, it turned our idea into a startup. I can't buy it. Just repeated themselves. In any case, yeah, I mean, it was
I mean,
just
like it is a great product.
it would just came about like
It
one
is.
Saturday. We're like, okay, let's do it. Like, why not? We've been working together for a while. We've had some great success in a lot of different projects. So why not just continue it? And then LabXD was born. And really, the whole XD was born because this guy would always just finish all his sentences with a nice little smiley face, Like, oh, have a great day. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And for this man, I mean, how do you introduce yourself all the time?
Walee like a robot. But I've been doing that since college, thanks to a couple of my friends out there. I mean, like, I really got to embrace Wally the robot, not myself, but the movie. Like, it's a great movie. I highly recommend. And so, like, that's where it started. To be honest. Like,
So, you know,
it's a fantastic movie.
we decided like, hey, let's do LabXD. LabXD was a play off that, like a laboratory of experiences. Ooh, a little bug there, a little bug there. But the whole point of this was like really just to do things that like it's twofold, right? That we can always be learning and we can create and grow projects that we are super happy to do. And, the survey app, I don't think is necessarily a project that we want to wake up and do every single day. But, the whole process of building a very modern stack application built on primarily open source software that's fully responsive in 30 days really taught us a lot about how we planned ahead of time, um, curbing our expectations because we have so many ideas and different ways of doing things. So it really was definitely a practice on picking the right technology, picking the right open source content, and going for it.
Yeah, and like this is where it's, to be honest, all the stack that we chose definitely let us move quite fast. Like we used NextJS, we used tRPC, and we had full stack. We used Prisma to talk to our MySQL database. Shout out to PlanScale; they're pretty chill with their free tier. And like this is where it was quite an interesting experience, to be honest. Like to try and restrict us and just see how fast we can iterate with the stack. And that's part of the mission for us is to find that sweet stack where like, as we build more and more things, we'll have a collection of tools to deploy, and every project that we build will give us more collection of utilities we have gathered. And we hope to open source a lot of those so like other people can take advantage of it. Because I was like thinking like yesterday, I was looking into some building out a more solid authorization, and I was looking to Castle and tRPC. And I think like we can build like a super nice integration and open source that. Like things like those, like things that we're gonna accumulate over time as utilities. I think we'd be open sourcing a lot of those. So that more and more people can benefit from our own iterations, to be honest.
So here's a preview of our stack. Here's our nice responsive. It's responsive. The whole point of like building a stack was to do it in a user experience kind of way. We piggybacked off Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, some of the big players out there. And what we really wanted to do was look at what was the pain point on the survey app. It is not the actual survey part. Let's be clear. The survey app was really a placeholder. What we were really solving is what do you do with that data, and how does the experience of creating a usable, readable form what does it take? And we fell upon our nice buddies over here. Let's take a good look at Sandance. This is Sandance. And Sandance was really found just looking at different data visualization tools. The point of this was to, find a fun way to really take data and to do something fun with it. So Sandance was something that we could jump onto and kind of visualize data in a much more holistic way. I say that word a lot, but I don't even know if that's the right
Ooh.
place to put it. Besides that, I mean, everything else is exactly like any other survey. You go to your dashboard, here's a survey, here are results. We break it down, numeric value, responses. You're able to like pull different questions. You get a percentage of what people have taken, right? You can export the data, which is pretty cool. The export, I like the export part because now, even if we don't iterate past this, you can still have your data. You can do whatever you need to do with it, and this thing will just continue. Ooh, new laptop M1. Shout out Apple. So there it is. There's all that data. Let's look at anything else. So Ellie, you picked the back end. I did the front end. I picked
Yeah.
to do the front end. We decided to use NextJS, TypeScript. TypeScript heavy, be strict with it. There's no reason for us to guess what the variables are. We did Tailwind. Oh man. And our
Yep.
Tailwind,
Yep.
oh my God, like when we first started with Tailwind, it was, it was just using it to look at code. Right. Let's go to terminal. We just use it to do quick changes on the site. Nothing big, nothing special about it, right? Here's our source. We keep everything in modules. So when we move from one app to another, we can just move the whole modules and bam, done. Pages aren't really a big deal to us. But yeah, we basically use this so we can do inline editing. We can change the background, we can make custom stuff. And that really got us into a good place with our design system. And we called it GusXD, a play off Tailwind, where we are really extending that code and making our own, building out components, page layouts, providers, cards, colors. So now our next project, we can just jump on into that. And that's the front end. That's why we chose the front end because this is what I use to do quick prototyping, to produce front end, to produce something that's interactive quickly so I can give to the designers. The designers can go and iterate off that. But that was always, for me, that was always the easy part. The hard part was really, Walee, where you come in and choosing, what what kind of database service, how we're going to deploy it, where we're going to deploy it, how we're going to track changes, how do we control the code quality, stuff like that.
Yeah. And like this is where I mean, like we're building on top of Next.js, so we basically took advantage of that and tRPC. So that's our data communication layer between our front end and back end. It gives such a seamless experience when you're especially using Next.js because your backend types are just there and it's just giving you just such a nice experience in terms of the queries it makes available. Under the hood, tRPC is leveraging Next React query, which is quite nice because like they're obviously not reinventing the wheel. And this is where like the types just work seamlessly. It's very nice. You write in the back end, you jump on your front end code, it's just right there. You don't need to run any code generation like in GraphQL. You don't have to do any kind of weird like create types in two different places, no duplication. there are issues in terms of scaling this long term. Like, for example, if you have 10, I believe the limitation. So for tRPC 9, there's, I think, after after a couple of thousand, it starts slowing down. And in tRPC 10, it's actually up to, no, I think it's up to 10,000 ish. So this is where 10,000 procedures. And so this is where there's a lot of room for growth. And in terms of building projects, our goal is to be quick, be effective, have as little bugs as possible. And this is where this technology works quite nicely. And then we have Prisma on the other end. And Prisma is talking to our database, which is MySQL, powered by PlinScale, who's leveraging Vitas. It's a super nice. Prisma generates all the types, so this is where we do have some code generation that's happening specifically for Prisma. But overall, Prisma works super nicely, and we're able to use it as a very nice ORM. And one of the biggest things is under the hood, they're leveraging Rust. So the performance is quite acceptable. It's not like many other ORMs where your performance gets bogged down. But obviously, it's not as fast as executing raw SQL. So there are some pros and cons. Definitely much better DX. Other than that, it's been super nice. We just write a procedure, we jump on the front end, it's right there. So integration. So as a full stack engineer, it's been a dream come true. You're right, and it's available on the React side. So under the hood, how tRPC does it is they're using proxies. So on the back end, it does some things. On the front end, does something else. And so it's a super nice experience, and definitely fits our project goals quite well as a stack.
We do normally a monorepo. I mean, sometimes is it overkill? What's the point of a monorepo for the most part? For us, I think, well, at least for me, every project that I've ever done has always been on this setup where we're keeping any of our applications in the naps folder. We're keeping any microservices really inside a package folder. And then we could then leverage that into another place. That's what we did with GusXD. GusXD is really,
Yep.
they have a whole another website for it. Let's see here. So here it is. So let's look at GusXD open source. Go check it out. So here it is. Our website
And
is located here. And the packages are right here. This is our GusXD. This is how we built it. I'll tell all your Tailwind fans, go check it out. We kind of split it up into components. These are all our React components or plugins. I realize on the podcast people will not see any of this. But the point is that we split up our Tailwind into a separate, basically JavaScript files, and then we are just compiling them down to like a common JS and then pushing it out. And we chose this route. What's up?
I was just gonna say you'll find all the links in the doobly doo wherever you're listening, so you can follow along with Jimmy.
So yeah, it's so our breakdown with Tailwind was pretty easy. Anything that we decided to extend on a normal scale and a global scale, like buttons, button disabled, goes into a JavaScript file. And anything that we are doing that's explicit to us versus something that is universal inside the HTML ecosystem, we then put into a style sheet. And in here, this is where we store all our fonts in there, what fonts we use. This is where we're importing our icons. We're using Google icons. This is where we are storing XD specifics. And the cards are really the first thing that we're using. Go to LabXD, you'll see the card there, and you'll see it around surveyXD a lot. But that is some of the byproducts of like the things that we created. Because, you know, if we're going to build products in 60 days, we gotta have a good starting point. We can't just start fresh each time. That's gonna be almost an
Exactly.
impossibility. We just got lucky because our friend Walee. Um, let's step back real quick and let's talk about the summer, Walee. Right. Our
Yes.
summer was very, how do you say, adventurous, say the least.
100%.
We're both
Unprecedented times.
we're both from New York City. And in New York City, we have things called Revell that, go around the city. You see these little electric scooters, these blue scooters all over the place. They're meant to really be ridden just like a car, under 35 miles an hour. And so when me and Wally started kind of working outside of work, we both worked together. But when we started doing these projects together, we would meet up riding these Brevels, and we would meet up somewhere in between. So in July and August, we were supposed to start planning our Vietnam trip to ride
Yep.
motorcycles up and down the coast. Then one fateful afternoon, Wally, you can just take over from there.
One fateful afternoon, it was really hot, and I was making my way home on the Ravel. And it was interesting because that Ravel had signs that told me I should have probably not taken it, because it was not particularly it was not disconnecting. It wouldn't actually let me shut the Ravel off. But I
Where
was
were
like,
where were you in
oh, I'll
Queens?
take it home. I was on Queens Boulevard. I was actually right by there, that cemetery. You see that cemetery to the left? So that's literally where the I was changing lanes and the car in front of me braked abruptly. It was a Honda RAV4. So I'm like, okay, I gotta brake really hard. So I squeezed both brakes as hard as I can, and I just got thrown off. I got thrown off the scooter, and I don't know how I landed, but I remember kind of losing consciousness. And while I was unconscious, I was like, oh no, something happened. I gotta wake up. And then as I came to it, I saw this dude just on top of me. He's like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. Let me just stand up. And so I'm trying to stand up. Oh, I can't stand up. I just fell back down. And lo and behold, I could not move. I was in a good amount of pain. They called the ambulance and they took me to the ER. And in the ER, I got some hope. And they were like, oh, displaced your knee. I'm like, yes, displaced knee. I'll be home tonight. And then the X-ray guy came with his big ass X-ray machine. This is a portable one, so they just X-ray you on the bed. And so they did the X-ray, and lo and behold, I see the light drain from the doctor's face because he gave me hope, and now he has to take it away. So he shows me on the screen, "Hey, you see? Here's your bone. It's smooth, smooth, smooth. Not smooth. You broke your bones."
My goodness.
So here we are.
So here's an interesting thing that we don't think about, and Wally didn't think about it. What hospital do you go to when you get injured? This guy goes to essentially the closest hospital, which is Elmhurst
Yep.
Hospital Center, but it's a city hospital, which means that like all forms of life
Yeah.
come to this place. And I do remember when I came and visited you. Here's our boy over here. I was like, I can't believe it. You already had like an accident not too long ago with your left leg when you
Yes.
fell off a scooter in Spain because
In
you
Portugal.
were, or Portugal, where you haven't
Yeah.
slept in a couple days because this guy's trying to do
So,
work in two different places. And now I come and visit you. I'm like, oh my God, you don't have any legs. You're legless.
I mean, it's interesting to be honest. I mean, like the most interesting thing it has been just going through this. It feels like it's been a build up to this moment, and like I've been building up like the last couple of years, breaking my life. So, I mean, and like I think the experience was kind of similar because when I was coming back home, it was really hot and I felt dehydrated AF. So some definitely something to keep in mind in the future. Don't get dehydrated.
Yeah, please don't get dehydrated. And
Like holy moly, guys.
then the following week was when we were supposed to get our motorcycle training. This guy,
Yeah,
obviously, 1 week. Maybe we should have pushed it ahead of time, but I don't know, man. I guess
it was not meant.
it wasn't meant to be. But hey, we got next
Yeah,
year.
exactly. It was not meant to be. Exactly. I'm not worried. I mean, I gotta survive this. I'll get to ride bikes. I'm not worried. Only a matter of time.
So I remember that you spent a few weeks over there. This is July at this point. And then eventually, no, this is August at this point,
No, it's August.
right? And then at the end of August,
August 5th. That's when I got into the accident.
so August 5th, then at towards the end of August, you get transported to Kohler over in Roosevelt
Yes.
Island, all right? And lucky for me,
Yep.
that is very close to where I live. I live in Queens over here, so I was able to come visit you.
Yep.
And really, I mean, let's be honest, like you were put in a wing that you should not have been in because
I like that.
you were the only person that was literally able to move. You were in like a high
Yes.
intensive trauma in a place where like everybody is either a vegetable or you're unable to
Not mobile.
you're not mobile.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like I was just a little bit more mobile than the average patient there. It was more like I had a lot of mobility to go around.
And here's a boy over here, I was able to, bring you some orange juice. Found out you're a big orange juice guy,
Thank you
big
for that.
sandwich guy.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, for the next few weeks, I would come, bring you some food, we would converse, and I think that's really, a kind of a blessing in disguise because we were able to really just talk about kind of our plans for the future and really what we were trying to get accomplished. I mean, neither one of us wants to be corporate cogs forever. Like we are corporate cogs right now. You were in the startup world. I was in the startup world. And
Yeah.
so, we both know where we want to go. And I think that is a huge, huge motivator when it comes to like branching off and trying to do our own thing because of just like
100%.
that slight motivation part. What else do I got here for you? Ooh, look at this picture. So yeah, this is legit, super legit, your injury.
Oh, wow.
I remember
That's
when I
what I really enjoy.
I remember when I told people at work, I was like, "Oh, Walee's out for a while." Like they're like, "Oh, what happened?" I was like, "He fell off a scooter." Oh, they're like, "Oh, is he okay?" I was like, "He has no legs." Maybe I shouldn't have been so like dramatic about it, but I mean, you don't have any legs, you can't walk on. You still got like what is it, 2.5 more months before you can put any weight on it?
3 months,
Oh.
120 days, my friend.
How do you even get downstairs? Like you're upstairs. Like how do you get downstairs without putting any kind of weight on it?
I mean, you gotta go on your butt, basically. You gotta use your hands and go down on your butt. Like, it's very much that life. This is the, I mean, like, to be honest, it's been a very interesting experience for me because, like, being able bodied, this is my first time experiencing, like, being disabled. Like I am disabled because I cannot, like my mobility is very much limited, and like you truly see like how the world is built for able-bodied people, and it's been quite eye-opening in terms of like how like little things are very difficult. Yeah.
This was the day
Oh
before
man.
we started. We talked about all these different ideas, and this is the day we decided to venture on to like build the surveyXD. We had like a million different ideas, and that's like a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast. That's a whole nother conversation on like how we chose this specific project to do. And it really came down to what was feasible in 30 days and what kind of things that we did before even starting. And we had already a good setup that was conducive to building an application that stored user data in kind of a workspace kind of setup. And, our job was really just to do a POC, right? September 1st, September 30th,
Yeah.
build a POC, build it what we can, build it fully functional, build it in a way where people can use it, um, give a way that people can give feedback. And then in these next 30 days, October 1st to October 31st, where we're in now, it's all about growth, right? And this is our
Yeah.
growth plan right here, which is just talk about it. We're gonna just talk about what we did to build it. And
Yeah. Share our experience building things.
it's one thing like
We're builders, we're creators.
the one thing I've definitely realized is that like, why not us? I've worked with enough people from all walks of life. A lot have gone to Amazon, a lot have gone to Facebook, a lot have gone to Google. And the one thing that holds true is that if you're systematic and you're meticulous about your code quality and you document, you're good to go. I really feel like that's what it really takes to really push yourself to like the next level, just documentation and being able to replicate and use your critical thinking. I think I tell you that all the time. Your critical thinking is what sends you apart from everyone else. I mean, what is your
Yeah.
background? Is your background C++? Is your background JavaScript? Is your background TypeScript? What's your background, Walee?
Now we're talking about OG time. Man, high school. So this is where I always was interested. I want to build things, and I find computers quite fascinating. And so I didn't start programming until like the end of middle school, early high school. And so this is where I was trying to figure out how do I learn programming because I didn't know anyone who was a programmer. So I found this YouTube channel called The New Boston. Shout out to The New Boston. I don't think he posts videos anymore. He's a super chill guy. And so he was posting YouTube videos on C++. And so my first programming language was actually C++. I haven't written C++ in, wow, a decade, more than a decade. Actually, no, that's not true. I did write C++ in college, but let's throw in like about 6 to 8 years. I haven't written any C++. And so C++ was my first language. Then I did a lot of Python. And so basically, it was like always trying to build different things. I started using Linux. So I learned a lot, like changing my distro every other week. And so, like, that's kind of where I started. And this is where, like, early college was not as interesting because, when you start out, everyone, like, the intro class are like variables, and I'm like, I know what variables are. Why am I here, right? So like this is where at that time I was like looking to pivot to just building things, and the web was the easiest platform to build. So I started learning JavaScript, but JavaScript was not as enjoyable as like a statically typed language, obviously. And so that's kind of what when I found TypeScript that truly changed my life. I'm all about those static type guys. It's like life is good with types. Refactoring is like no one's business. And so like I've been coding like TypeScript like and React. Wow, it's been a while. I've been like coding since in like that kind of ecosystem since like middle of college. I remember when like React came out. I remember like the OG React, like the create class React. And then I remember all those conversations about like, oh, we're gonna have class components. How could we? We're like functional. React is all functional. And the classes came. People were not happy with classes. And the hooks came. And it feels like hooks are new, but hooks are pretty old. They've been around for like a hot minute. And so, like just like that, I remember like the early days of Next.js. So, so like the JS ecosystem moves at the speed of light. So so it's been quite a great experience to be honest, building all that. So, Jimmy, how about your experience? How did you get started?
Funny story. So I am an industrial engineer by trade. Um, so I guess I was really, if you ask like my parents, if you ask anyone, what does Jimmy do? Ah, he's in IT. What the fuck does that mean? Sorry. But in reality, my interest was always tinkering and really just trying to figure out how things worked. And then once I figure out how things work, just trying to make it as efficient as possible. And then, I got into early web design in HTML back in like the 2000s. And in the early 2010s, I switched over to adult pedagogy, which is, adult learning. Went to work for some universities as an instructional technologist, building out different ways for adults, mostly grad students, to learn with a technology base. And this is way, way before remote learning. This is when Sakai first came out, Blackboard first came out. And I kind of just ran with that for a while. Building out interactive applications standalone was not a thing. So, Articulate came out, Adobe came out with some products to build out some e-learning modules. If you work at any corporate place and you take some onboarding modules, those are the things that I was an SME at. And then, I would say 7 years ago, just I was like, hey, let's try to just start building experiences for the masses versus trying to build individual courses or individual um, just individual assignments, I guess that would be. And React started to come out big. Certain applications became easier and more consumable. And, you know, the birth of UX was born, and which is like in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And people thought they were crazy. I mean, at NYU people thought it was crazy, talking about like building things based off experiences versus building things off like factual theories that like people have written books for hundreds and hundreds of years. Um, but it turns out that times have changed and people consume things differently. The thought of learning
100%.
from a mobile device or being able to teach yourself from a video was like mind blowing. And so really I was
Yeah,
always a
knowledge
proponent of
has
that.
definitely been democratized.
I was always
So
been a
what you
proponent
just
about
said,
that. We'll work on a flow.
yeah, no, I was gonna just let you go. No, but what I was saying is like knowledge has definitely been democratized. Like, no, if you want to learn, like learning is no longer restricted to institutions, but it's like rather has become more of an individual experience, which is both good and bad. There are pros and cons to that.
I think if you just think about how we learn growing up, for me, And this is what how I took it, and this is what has made me to who I am today. Like I'm a pragmatic person, and which also folds over to like I am a pragmatic learner. I only want to learn with practical applications. Like it's theoretical teaching is not a thing that works for me. So if you are able to teach me calculus on based on like craps or blackjack, I would be able to consume that better than if you told me um, different theories on why, we use square roots versus using pi. Like that doesn't bode well with me. And then I started building applications based off that. I built applications and experiences based on what was intuitive. And as long as we can build in an intuitive fashion, then the learning curve is very small. Try to teach your parents how to check their Gmail and to create labels and filter them. You're gonna pull teeth doing
Uh
it. And,
that's you need a PhD for that at that point. Like
but
if you,
if you can build an
I mean,
experience where someone can go in and figure and know that, hey, I read top to bottom, left to right in America, then if you build based off it, use color theories that is gonna keep you in the seat, but to lower the eye fatigue, then you're in a good spot, and that's where the growth of like research, the growth of user experience, user feedback, feedback loops, design thinking, all these different models come about it. They're all just various ways on our psyche and how we actually look at things. So this is where I'm at today
I
because of
mean,
it.
the difficulty there is like, to be honest, a lot of, even till today, like a lot of, like I was talking about, the modern world is designed for able-bodied people. Like modern tech is designed for tech literate people. So this is where like everything's designed with with the base level of expectation that certain cues, like design cues. And as we have progressed, like skeuomorphism has kind of died in the user experience world. This is where early Apple was very big on that because part of the thing was they were trying to bridge that gap between like high level of between like completely new users and this complete new user experience, which is touch. And they were trying to bridge that gap with familiar design languages. And now, as like it's been like a decade, things have flattened out. And to be honest, like I see, like my parents are like a great example of that. Like the what I have been able to teach them is just use Gmail, find your email. But like that's where we're stuck right now. It's like going beyond. It's like, oh, where's the reply button? Where's the reply all button? Where's the attach button? So it's definitely like even though they've been using computers, but their focus is super narrow, and they're always afraid to take a risk, and they don't want to just explore. So that's kind of where, like, if user experience can like, inspire more explorative experiences, like, hey, check things out with nudges. That'd be quite interesting to see if there are a possible solution to that because there's a whole world of people who are not that tech savvy
Yeah.
because most people are not.
So it's all about, and this is, I think, our big thing is that we're not, you know, technology is throwaway. It's going to be something new. JavaScript is here today. TypeScript is here today. Um, who knows what's going to be tomorrow? So let's forget about technology for a second.
They'll be here forever.
Let's forget about technology for a little bit and let's worry about the process, our critical thinking, right? That's really the separator. You go into these job interviews, you go interview for Google, Amazon, know those principles. But at the end of the day, what they're what we should all really be looking for is your critical thinking. How do you solve a problem? How do you systematically break down a situation and how do you tackle it? And this is literally what we did throughout building out surveyXD was to break it down into pieces and milestones that are achievable, figure out most effective solutions. We're not looking for the best solutions, right? I think you talked about that there's no such thing as perfection. Like finding the perfect solution means you there's nothing better. And we all know
100%.
there's always something better. There's always better technology come in, there's always better knowledge, there's always a better way. You use Node now, you might use Bun tomorrow. You might build in Rust. Who
I'm
knows?
Yeah, like this is where the saying goes, perfect is the enemy of good. And I'll say good enough. In software engineering, like oftentimes we can get carried away. You can end up over engineering. And I guess it's a very fine line, to be honest, to walk between things working and being a garbage fire. You know what I mean? And so like there are places where things are working and things are also garbage fire. And so like, this is where I definitely don't want us to get up ourselves caught up in a mentality of not paying technical debt, but at the same time, you don't need to over engineer. The goal is to achieve the product, the user experience goals. Like tech is a tool for us to empower mission.
Do you think that we over like what do you how do you feel what we did with surveyXD in
I mean,
terms
we
of
did
like
very minimal
it's funny, oh, it's
in
interesting.
terms of
What do you mean we did minimal?
like in the sense that we don't have a very complex authorization system. We just have enough of an authorization check. Additionally, like we did build out CI/CD, but it's not completely functional, but it does enough of a job. And addition, like our stack is very much conducive to our goals, which is to iterate fast. Because in the sense that I want to be able to take an idea that was mocked up and be able to implement it as quick as possible, rather than provisioning resources, thinking about complex architecture, because we want to be able to build things fast.
Build it fast is the name of the game, my friend. It's something that in my corporate life that we have to always be thinking about because money is finite and it's on a loop. Because eventually, once you hit the end of the loop, someone else is going to jump into that place or some kind of project is going to jump into the place. So if we weren't far enough with our whatever our initiative was, then we get thrown out. Um, and then you get put into a maintenance mode and you get thrown into different teams or a different project, which now you become not solving problems that you want. You solve whatever problem, whatever team you get thrown on hit. So you kind of not really part of the team that you first signed up for. So that's always an
Yeah,
interesting fact.
and like these are trying times, you know. Like everyone is cutting like expenses, like from big tech to small tech, from main road to local road. All everyone is trying to cut expenses to given growth has slowed down, inflation and all those things. This is where definitely being cognizant about resource scarcity is important. And this is where like perfection, like trying to achieve perfection is a bad thing. Like it's where oftentimes the best way to build things is not think about it too much. You need a general blueprint. You need a skeleton you thought out, like, hey, here's my approach, and then just go build it. And if it works, you do version 2, version 3, version 4. You want to be able to throw your code away, ideally, because you wrote it in such a modular way. And this is where you optimize things as needed. Like in a sense, like you optimize things reactively rather than proactively. And this is one of the things like a lot of people oftentimes forget. Like you don't need massive performance. Like if you just built a product even ourselves right now, how many people do we really have, right, incoming into the new product, right? So this is where being able to deliver it and get feedback is far more important than like building this beautiful castle that no one will come.
Yeah, agreed. So with our app, LabXD, to really build out these different tools and figure out what projects to go and use this what we are coining the 30 rapid POC model, where we spend really 30 days at a time doing things. 30 days in this sense to create, 30 days now to grow. But initially we were doing 30 and 30, but in reality, we can spend 30 days just talking about design. We can spend 30 days figuring out business
Yep,
rules. The whole point of it is not the 30 days. The whole point of it is to be finite about the amount of time that you're going to leverage on one topic, and then be able
exactly.
to craft your narrative into obtainable milestones. And I think we did that very efficiently with our first go around with survey. We are,
100%.
we're kind of learning as we go with the growth part right now, because we don't know what our KPIs are going to be. We're still in the middle of talking about our KPIs, right? What is going to be successful? How are we going to indicate that, right? And hopefully, through this
Yeah,
process that we're going to figure it out, and hopefully people can help us along the way. But our goal is to really just take our lessons that we learn and to use the successes in the next project, and then so on and so
yeah,
on.
and also
Keep
like
turning
share it with everyone.
projects. Yes.
Yeah, and like whatever our findings are, share with everyone. Because I do really believe that the 30 model is the ideal. Because like one of the things, so the inspiration for this comes from Michael Siebel at Y Combinator, and one of the things he mentioned, you can look it up. It's like one of his talks about product because he was a product guy at Twitch. I mean, he's one of the co-founders. But so one of the things he was saying, like, for you, you should be for any startup, they should be able to launch their MVP within 30 days. And so, like, this is kind of difficult. So, like, what does that 30-day really entail? Like, we took it too hard, but like our original idea of like 30 and 30 was like, hey, we'll build it in 30 days and we'll market it in 30 days. But now, after our first 30-day experience, we're like, hey, actually, it's not difficult to design and build a product at the same time. And even like a lot of the business forethought needed to initiate the design process, right? Like there's business comes first, then design, then you build the product, then you do marketing. That's kind of like the steps, right? One after another. And once your product matures, a lot of things can work in parallel. But when you're starting out, that's kind of the step. And often, so what we have been kind of seeing, it's like difficult to do so in parallel. And so this is where like design needs to be a little bit ahead of development. Business needs to be a little bit ahead of design. So like look, business is kind of the engine that's pulling the design forward. The design is pulling the product, like the development forward. The development is pulling the marketing forward, right? You can't really market non-existing thing unless you're marketing hype. So that's kind of like how I see things. This is where the third I do believe like you should be able to validate ideas in this kind of way.
Yeah, shout out to DJ Wooster. We brought him on, or we were blessed to have him come on and really push our
Absolutely.
design. You'll hear from him next time. But
Shout out DJ.
he built out our Figma. As a UX engineer, I do a lot of rapid prototyping. Slipped right there. And one of the big tools we use, Sketch and Vision, and the new kid on the block, shout out Adobe, is Figma. And Figma is a great product because it's built on the same technology that we all know. It's a node-based project. It's fantastic. So a lot of the things that it does, and a lot of the tools that make it work and make it tick is the same tools that we use in the everyday life. Um, but once again, it's not about technology, it's about process. And DJ gave us a great process on creating how to create a high quality, reusable prototyping template. And here you go. You can see that these are all the things that we've done. We were able to split it into different projects, color mode, typography. And now we can take all this and we have all these different assets. And now building out the next product is going to be so much faster. We spent, did it in parallel in the first 30 days, which is not ideal. And it's because, well, like Walee just said, design needs to be ahead of development. Once design gets to a point where they're always 2 steps ahead, as a developer, I can just go in and look at the product and say, hey, I'm going to do a pixel perfect match. I'm going to design based exactly, or I'm going to develop exactly what I see on the screen. That's it saves so much time to do it that way. I don't know about you, Ali, but this is like what saves me time as a UX engineer. People sometimes expect me to do both design and development, but in reality, if I had a UX designer, my development would be 10 times better because now I can concentrate on the fun things, the functionality, putting things together, finding out the most effective ways of like making reusable components and really holistically thinking what is a component versus what is a one-off and how to really control that. And DJ did a great job by giving us that starting point. And we're hoping
Yeah,
that
like
we take
yeah,
this into the
right.
next project.
Yeah, like there's so much to take into our next project. There's so much. We have our Figma work, our code. We have a much stronger code base to start off of. I think one of the things we'll do is distill out our stack and just share it with everyone, like open source our stack setup. And I think a lot of folks will enjoy it.
And the goal would be to like what I hope is that each one of our stack has parity, but technology is always changing. Like if we're going to do another database setup, will we use Planet Scale again? Will we use tRPC? No, I don't know. That's really going to be up
Right? Like,
to.
I mean, I'd say like as it stands for our projects, the best thing is to kind of build out, like have this our toolkit and kind of use the toolkit as a starting point. And we're slowly building out the toolkit. But definitely as the product grows, like for a lot of products, like plan scale probably wouldn't be the best. The plan scale has limitation. Like for example, if you have like if we're building something like much more restricted, like something in finance, like fintech or health, we will probably not go with plan scale. So like because of regulatory requirements. And so, like that definitely depends on the choice of core technology depends on the business product needs, but more B2C setup, definitely like our stack would be quite good place to start at.
So with that being said, some things that we're going to talk about in the coming days, B2B versus B2C, are a continuous fight on where to tackle, um,
Mm-hmm.
how we picking projects.
B2C,
Picking projects
it's hard.
is very, very difficult. And probably the biggest. I know you're not sold on the consumer, but for me, consumer is where's that. You are more on a very almost money driven side, and B2B is definitely a good route, but that's a totally different conversation that we'll get into. Um, Picking projects is a huge
I
thing
mean, I
that
just want to
we're going to talk
bet
about.
on the horse. Like I just want to bet on the horse with the highest chance of success. You know what I mean?
It's not always about success. Listen here, it's oh to me, it's about even there are many projects that are going to be successful based on need, based on users, based on a whole slew of things. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and want to work on that. Just because you know it's gonna make a lot of money, just because you know that it has high potential in that scale doesn't mean that it is the right fit for you. Because, at this point, like we can go chase money, we can go chase the corporate world and just turn out a couple bucks here and there, but like everything
No,
else,
I
it's
mean,
all
but
gonna
the,
end
the
one
thing,
day.
yeah, 100%, I agree. Like the thing is, for us, kind of like where we stand right now, building for us to validate even our like process, we need to build products that kind of hit the metrics of success, like KPIs that we want to fulfill. Like this is where like at the end of the day, we definitely want to pursue projects that do inspire us. Like in the sense that you want to wake up in the morning and want to be like, yes, put in the 110% because I like it. But also at the same time, like being realistic, it's not always that rosy. Like in the sense that there are going to be bad days. Like sometimes you will question yourself and this should I even pursue this? Like hard days are just the way of life, but you just got to push through that. And this is where it's a mixed bag. So this is where like the honeymoon phase only lasts so long. So what you want to pursue something that's not just a short term infatuation, but something you'd be willing to stick with as like the product ramps up, and you'd be willing to fight for its survival to a degree.
Right? I think that's a good segue out. So check us out on Discord. That's where we're gonna get all our feedback for right now. Um, check us out, check surveyXD out, and we're gonna go underneath the umbrella of House of XD because, when you're building a house, you might
A
as well live in it. And that's what we're trying to do.
it's more than just a startup. There's so much more.
Exactly, 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 as Walee would say. All right, folks. Talk to you guys next time.